In a quiet corner of the galaxy, far from Earth and its busy cities, a small spaceship called Starlight Horizon drifted silently among the stars. The ship wasn't large or powerful like the mighty warships of the Galactic Fleet, but it had an important job. Its crew explored unknown parts of space, searching for new planets, strange life forms, and anything that could help humanity understand the universe better. Captain Daniel Brooks stood on the bridge of the ship, his hands resting lightly on the control panel. He was a calm man in his mid-30s, with short brown hair and a steady gaze. His crew trusted him because he always made careful decisions, even when things got tough. Beside him sat Laura Miller, the communication officer. Laura was young, with curly blonde hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her job was to listen to the silence of space, hoping to catch any whispers of alien signals or messages from distant worlds. It was during one of these routine scans that something unusual happened. Laura's fingers moved quickly across her console as she adjusted the frequency settings. Suddenly, her screen flickered, and a faint beep echoed through the room. At first, she thought it might be interference from a nearby star, but then the sound came again, clearer this time. It was a signal, weak and distorted, but definitely artificial. Someone, or something, was trying to communicate. "Captain," Laura said, turning to Daniel with wide eyes. "You need to hear this." Daniel leaned over her shoulder, his brow furrowing as he listened. The message was broken and hard to understand, filled with static and strange crackling noises. But there was no mistaking the tone. It sounded desperate, almost pleading. After a few moments, a single phrase emerged from the chaos. "Help us before it's too late." The words sent a chill down everyone's spine. Who could have sent such a message? And what did they mean by "before it's too late"? The signal seemed to be coming from a nearby planet, partially hidden behind thick clouds. From what little data they had gathered, the planet appeared barren and lifeless, yet the distress call suggested otherwise. Daniel called for a meeting with the rest of the crew. Lieutenant Ryan Carter, the ship's engineer, joined them. Ryan was a tall man with broad shoulders and a practical mindset. He preferred working with machines rather than people, but he respected Daniel and valued his leadership. Also present was Dr. Emily Dawson, the xenobiologist. Emily was curious about all forms of life, whether plant, animal, or alien. Her expertise would be crucial if they encountered anything living on the mysterious planet. As the team gathered around the table, Daniel explained the situation. "We've picked up a distress signal," he began. "It's faint, but it's definitely real. I want to know what you all think we should do." Ryan spoke first. "It could be dangerous," he said cautiously. "We don't know what's waiting for us down there." Emily nodded but added, "But we can't ignore it either. What if someone really needs our help?" Laura agreed. "If we leave now, we might lose the signal entirely. This could be our only chance to find out who, or what, is sending it." Daniel sighed, weighing their arguments. He knew they couldn't turn away from a cry for help, no matter how risky it seemed. "All right," he said finally. "We'll investigate, but we stay alert and stick together. If anything feels wrong, we pull back immediately." With that decision made, the crew prepared to land on the mysterious planet. As the Starlight Horizon descended through the swirling clouds, none of them could have guessed the adventure and danger that lay ahead. The Starlight Horizon landed softly on the surface of the mysterious planet, its engines humming as they powered down. The crew stepped out onto the alien terrain, their boots sinking slightly into the soft gray soil. The air was thick with a strange mist that clung to everything, making it hard to see far ahead. Strange rock formations jutted out of the ground like jagged teeth, and the sky above was a dull orange, casting an eerie glow over the landscape. Captain Daniel Brooks led the way, his eyes scanning the surroundings carefully. Laura Miller followed close behind, holding a handheld scanner that beeped softly as it analyzed the environment. Lieutenant Ryan Carter carried a toolkit slung over his shoulder, ready to fix anything that might go wrong. Dr. Emily Dawson brought up the rear, her eyes wide with curiosity as she examined the unusual plants and rocks scattered around them. After walking for about half an hour, the group stumbled upon something unexpected. Rising from the mist were the remains of what looked like ancient buildings. The structures were crumbling and covered in vines, but their design was unmistakably artificial. Strange symbols were carved into the stone walls, glowing faintly as if they still held some kind of energy. "This is incredible," Emily whispered, running her fingers over one of the symbols. "These markings, they're not human. Whoever built this place was advanced, maybe even more advanced than us." Laura nodded, her scanner now beeping more rapidly. "There's definitely some kind of signal coming from deeper inside. It's stronger here than it was back at the ship." Daniel frowned, studying the ruins. "We need to be careful. If there's technology still active after all this time, it could be dangerous." Ryan knelt down to examine the base of one of the structures. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a panel embedded in the wall. It was cracked and covered in dust, but faint lights pulsed beneath the surface. "This thing is still working. I think it's part of whatever sent the distress signal." Emily crouched beside him, her excitement growing. "If we can decode these symbols, we might be able to figure out who sent the message and why." Laura pulled out her datapad and began taking pictures of the carvings. She worked quickly, entering the symbols into a translation program. After a few minutes, the screen displayed a partial result. "I've got something," she said, her voice trembling with anticipation. "It's not complete, but it looks like the message includes coordinates, pointing somewhere underground." "Underground?" Ryan asked, raising an eyebrow. "You mean there's more to this place than what we're seeing?" "It's possible," Daniel replied. "Ancient civilizations often built hidden chambers or tunnels beneath their cities. If this signal is leading us somewhere, we should follow it." Emily hesitated. "But what if it's a trap? We don't know what or who is waiting for us down there." Daniel glanced at her, then at the rest of the team. He knew they were right to be cautious, but he also felt a responsibility to uncover the truth. "We'll proceed slowly," he said firmly. "Stay alert, and if anything feels off, we turn back immediately." With that, the group began searching for an entrance to the underground area. It didn't take long to find one. A narrow opening partially hidden by fallen debris. Ryan used his tools to clear the way, revealing a steep staircase spiraling downward into darkness. The air grew colder as they descended, and the faint hum of machinery echoed through the tunnel. At the bottom, they entered a large chamber filled with strange machines and glowing conduits. In the center of the room stood a massive structure, a monolith covered in the same symbols they had seen outside. As they approached, the monolith began to hum louder, its surface lighting up in response to their presence. This isn't just a ruin," Emily murmured, her voice filled with awe. "It's alive." Before anyone could respond, the ground trembled slightly, and a low rumble echoed through the chamber. Something deep within the shadows stirred, and the crew exchanged uneasy glances. Whatever they had awakened, it was clear they weren't alone anymore. The crew froze, their eyes darting toward the shadows where the low rumble had come from. The monolith in the center of the chamber continued to glow brighter, its surface now pulsating with an intense light. Laura gripped her scanner tightly, her hands trembling as she tried to make sense of what was happening. "Something's activating," she whispered, "but I don't know what it is." Daniel stepped forward cautiously, his hand resting on the weapon strapped to his side. "Stay close," he said, his voice firm but calm. "We need to figure out what this thing is before it gets worse." As they watched, the symbols on the monolith began to shift and rearrange themselves, forming patterns that glowed brighter with each passing second. Suddenly, a beam of light shot upward from the structure, projecting holographic images into the air. The crew gasped as ghostly figures appeared before them. Tall, slender beings with elongated limbs and large, glowing eyes. Their movements were smooth and deliberate, and though their faces were expressionless, there was an undeniable sadness in their presence. "These must be the Varith," Emily murmured, her voice filled with wonder. "The ones who built this place." The holograms began to move, acting out a story that seemed both tragic and urgent. They showed the Varith as a proud and advanced civilization, their cities sprawling across the planet, and their technology reaching unimaginable heights. But then the images changed. The skies darkened, and explosions tore through the once thriving world. The Varith were fleeing, their faces etched with fear as they fought against something monstrous, a shadowy figure that loomed over them, consuming everything in its path. Laura leaned closer, trying to decipher the message. "They're warning us," she said, her voice shaking. This weapon they created. It's powerful enough to summon the supreme Galactic War Armada, but it fell into the wrong hands, and it destroyed them." Ryan frowned, staring at the monolith. "So what? This thing is still active after all these years, and it sent out that distress signal." "It looks like it," Daniel replied grimly. "But why now? What triggered it?" Before anyone could answer, the ground shook again, harder this time. A loud screeching noise echoed through the chamber, and the temperature dropped sharply. From the shadows emerged a creature unlike anything the crew had ever seen. It was biomechanical, its body a mix of metal and flesh, with sharp claws and glowing red eyes. Its movements were jerky but fast, and it let out another ear-piercing screech as it lunged toward them. "Move!" Daniel shouted, pulling out his weapon and firing at the creature. The others followed suit, retreating toward the staircase while trying to keep the beast at bay. Ryan fumbled with his toolkit, searching for something. Anything that might disable the machines powering the creature. Emily stumbled, nearly falling, but Laura grabbed her arm and pulled her back to her feet. "Keep moving," Laura yelled, her voice barely audible over the chaos. The creature swiped at them with razor-sharp claws, narrowly missing Daniel as he dodged to the side. He fired again, hitting one of its legs, but the shot only seemed to anger it further. It charged forward, forcing the group to split up to avoid being cornered. Ryan finally found what he was looking for, a control panel embedded in the wall. "I can shut it down," he shouted, "but I'll need time." Daniel hesitated, torn between staying to help Ryan and protecting the rest of the team. The creature was closing in, its red eyes locking onto Ryan's position. "Go!" Ryan yelled, slamming his fist against the panel. Sparks flew as the machines around them began to power down. The creature let out one last screech before collapsing to the ground, lifeless. But the victory was short-lived. Alarms blared throughout the chamber, and the walls began to crack as if the entire structure was destabilizing. "We need to get out of here. Now," Daniel ordered, grabbing Emily's arm and pulling her toward the exit. The others followed, sprinting up the staircase as chunks of rock and debris rained down behind them. When they finally burst out into the open air, gasping for breath, they turned back to see the ruins collapsing into the ground. Whatever they had awakened and stopped was now buried once more. But none of them felt relieved. They had escaped with their lives, but they knew they had only scratched the surface of the mystery. And deep down, they couldn't shake the feeling that the danger wasn't truly over. Back aboard the Starlight Horizon Asterisk, the crew gathered in the main cabin, their faces pale and their bodies still trembling from the encounter. None of them spoke for a long moment, each lost in their own thoughts about what had just happened. The creature was gone, but its presence lingered like a dark cloud over them. They knew they had narrowly escaped disaster, but they also couldn't ignore the fact that something far bigger and far more dangerous was at play. Laura broke the silence first. That thing, it wasn't just some random monster. It was connected to the monolith, to the Varith's weapon. Whatever activated it, it wasn't done yet. Daniel nodded slowly, his arms crossed as he stared at the floor. "We stopped it for now, but we didn't solve anything. If that signal keeps broadcasting, Others might come looking. And if someone finds that weapon before we do. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone understood the stakes. The Supreme Galactic War Armada, a coalition of powerful interstellar forces, had been summoned by the distress call. If they arrived and found the weapon, there was no telling what they might do with it. Or worse, what might happen if the shadowy entity they'd seen in the holograms returned. Emily leaned forward, her voice soft but urgent. We can't leave this planet like this. We have to warn someone. Anyone. Maybe the Galactic Fleet has resources we don't. They could help us figure out how to neutralize the threat. Ryan shook his head, frowning. Or they'll see it as an opportunity. That weapon is powerful, Emily. Too powerful. Do you really think they'll destroy it? Or will they try to use it for themselves? The room fell silent again, the weight of Ryan's words sinking in. Laura looked up from her datapad, her expression resolute. Either way, we can't handle this alone. If we don't tell someone, we're just leaving the galaxy wide open to whatever comes next. Daniel sighed, rubbing his temples. He knew they were right. As much as he wanted to keep the mission under control, the situation had grown far beyond their capabilities. All right, he said finally. We'll send a message, but we have to be careful about how we word it. We don't want to sound like we're panicking or exaggerating. Just stick to the facts. The signal, the ruins, the weapon, and the creature. Let them decide what to do next. Laura got to work immediately, composing a detailed report and attaching the data she had collected from the monolith. She encrypted the message and broadcast it on all major communication channels, hoping it would reach someone who could help. Once the transmission was sent, the crew settled into an uneasy wait, unsure of what or who would respond. It didn't take long. Within hours, the skies above the planet lit up with flashes of light as massive ships descended through the atmosphere. The Starlight Horizon rocked slightly from the shockwaves as dozens of colossal warships took position in orbit. At the center of the fleet was a ship unlike any the crew had ever seen, a gleaming silver vessel with sleek lines and glowing blue engines. Its name, painted boldly on the side, read Aurora Vanguard *. A voice crackled over the comm system. This is Admiral Samantha Hayes of the Supreme Galactic War Armada. Identify yourselves and explain your presence here. Daniel exchanged a glance with his team before stepping up to the console. Taking a deep breath, he replied, "This is Captain Daniel Brooks of the Starlight Horizon *. We're explorers from Earth. We detected a distress signal originating from this planet and came to investigate. What we found, it's complicated. We need to speak with you directly." There was a pause on the other end, followed by a curt response. "Stand by. A shuttle will arrive shortly." True to her word, a small craft detached from the Aurora Vanguard * and made its way toward the surface. When it landed, Admiral Hayes stepped out, flanked by two heavily armed guards. She was a tall woman with sharp features and piercing eyes, her uniform immaculate, and her demeanor commanding. She wasted no time with pleasantries. "You've caused quite a stir," she said, her tone stern. "Care to explain why?" Daniel quickly summarized everything they had discovered: the ruins, the Varith, the weapon, and the creature. Hayes listened intently, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she turned to her officers and gave a series of rapid orders before addressing the crew again. "You've done well to survive this long," she said, "but this isn't a job for amateurs. Leave the rest to us." As the Armada began deploying teams to explore the planet, Daniel and his crew felt a mix of relief and unease. They had done their part, but the thought of what lay ahead weighed heavily on their minds. Whatever was coming, they knew one thing for certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. Admiral Samantha Hayes wasted no time. Within minutes of hearing Daniel's report, she had ordered her fleet to begin a systematic search of the planet. Teams of soldiers and scientists in advanced suits descended from the Aurora Vanguard fanning out across the surface. Armed shuttles hovered above, scanning for any signs of movement or danger. The Supreme Galactic War Armada was known for its efficiency, and it showed in every action they took. Back aboard the Starlight Horizon the crew watched as the operation unfolded. Laura sat at her console, monitoring the transmissions between the Armada's teams. Ryan paced nervously near the window, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. Emily stared at the screens displaying images of the planet below, her mind racing with questions about the Varith and their weapon. And Daniel stood quietly, his eyes fixed on the glowing ships in orbit, deep in thought. Despite the relief of having backup, none of them felt truly safe. Admiral Hayes had been polite but firm, making it clear that the Starlight Horizon was no longer in charge. "You've done your part," she had said before leaving. But Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that they were being pushed aside, not because they weren't capable, but because the Armada didn't trust them. After all, they were just explorers, not soldiers or strategists. Hours passed, and the tension only grew. Suddenly, one of the shuttles sent back an urgent message. A faint energy signature had been detected deep beneath the planet's surface, right where the ruins were located. Admiral Hayes immediately assembled a strike team to investigate further. Before departing, she summoned Daniel and his crew to join her aboard the Aurora Vanguard *. "You know this planet better than anyone," she said bluntly. "I need you there if we're going to make sense of whatever we find." Though hesitant, Daniel agreed. He knew refusing would only raise suspicions, and he wanted to ensure his crew wasn't left out of the loop. Together, they boarded the shuttle and headed down to the ruins once more. The scene was chaotic when they arrived. Soldiers patrolled the area, their weapons drawn, while engineers worked frantically to stabilize the crumbling structures. The monolith still stood in the center of the chamber, though it now emitted a low hum that made everyone uneasy. Scientists surrounded it, taking readings and trying to decode the symbols etched into its surface. Admiral Hayes approached Daniel, her expression grim. "We've confirmed that the creature you encountered is gone. For now. But something else is here. Something alive." "What do you mean?" Daniel asked, his voice tense. "We've picked up biosignatures inside the tunnels leading away from this chamber," she explained. "Whatever it is, it's moving deeper underground. My team will pursue it, but I want your input along the way." As they ventured into the dark tunnels, the air grew colder, and the walls seemed to pulse faintly with light. Strange noises echoed around them, scraping sounds, distant growls, and the occasional rumble of shifting rock. The group moved cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Every step felt like walking into a trap. Emily paused suddenly, pointing to the ground. "Look at these marks," she whispered. "They're fresh. Something big was here recently." Before anyone could respond, a loud screech reverberated through the tunnel, followed by the sound of rushing footsteps. The soldiers raised their weapons, forming a protective circle around the others. From the shadows emerged not one, but several creatures, just like the one they had faced earlier. Their glowing red eyes locked onto the intruders, and they charged without hesitation. "Fire!" Admiral Hayes shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. Lasers and bullets flew as the team fought back, but the creatures kept coming, undeterred by the attacks. Daniel grabbed Emily's arm, pulling her behind cover. "We can't stay here," he yelled. "We need to fall back." But retreating wasn't an option. More creatures poured into the tunnel, blocking their escape route. Just when it seemed hopeless, a massive explosion rocked the area. Bright light filled the tunnel as debris rained down, forcing the creatures to retreat momentarily. When the dust settled, Admiral Hayes turned to Daniel, her face pale but determined. "This isn't over," she said. "If we don't stop whatever's controlling these things, none of us are getting out alive." The explosion had cleared a path, but it came at a cost. The tunnel behind them was now blocked by fallen rocks and debris, cutting off any chance of retreat. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid smell of burnt metal. Soldiers coughed as they tried to steady themselves, while scientists scrambled to assess the damage. Admiral Hayes stood tall despite the chaos, her sharp eyes scanning the group. "We can't go back," she said firmly. "Our only option is to move forward." Daniel nodded, though his heart pounded in his chest. He glanced at his crew. Laura looked pale but focused, clutching her scanner tightly. Ryan was checking his toolkit, his hands trembling slightly. Emily seemed dazed, her mind likely racing with questions about the creatures and the ruins. None of them spoke. They didn't need to. The gravity of the situation hung heavy in the air. The team pressed on, their flashlights cutting through the darkness of the narrow tunnel. Every step felt like walking into the unknown, each shadow hiding potential danger. The walls were slick with moisture, and strange symbols glowed faintly along the edges, pulsating as if alive. Laura stopped suddenly, pointing her scanner at one section of the wall. "There's something here," she whispered. "A hidden door, maybe." Ryan stepped forward, running his fingers over the surface. After a moment, he found a groove and pressed it. With a low rumble, part of the wall slid open, revealing a larger chamber beyond. The group exchanged uneasy glances before stepping inside. The chamber was unlike anything they had seen before. It was vast, with towering pillars covered in intricate carvings and glowing conduits running along the ceiling. At its center stood another monolith, similar to the one they had encountered earlier, but this one was fully active. Its surface shimmered with energy, projecting holographic images into the air. These weren't just recordings. They were live simulations, showing the galaxy under attack by shadowy figures wielding unimaginable power. Admiral Hayes stared at the projections, her jaw tightening. This is what the Verith feared," she murmured. "Their weapon wasn't just a tool. It was a key to summoning or controlling something far greater." Before anyone could respond, the ground shook violently. A loud screech echoed through the chamber, followed by the sound of claws scraping against stone. From the shadows emerged the largest creature yet, a monstrous version of the ones they had fought before. Its body was covered in jagged metal plates, and its glowing red eyes locked onto the group with terrifying intensity. "This is it," Daniel said, gripping his weapon tightly. "The source of all this." Admiral Hayes raised her hand, signaling her soldiers to hold their fire. "Wait," she ordered. Then, turning to Daniel, she added, "You've been here longer than us. Is there any way to shut that thing down?" Daniel hesitated, his mind racing. He remembered Ryan disabling the machines earlier and turned to him. "Ryan, do you think you can overload the core, like you did before?" Ryan swallowed hard but nodded. "I can try, but I'll need time and cover." "I'll handle that," Admiral Hayes said, pulling out her own weapon. She turned to her soldiers. "Keep those things busy. Don't let them near him." As the battle erupted, Ryan sprinted toward the monolith, his tools clinking in his hands. Laura stayed close, using her scanner to guide him. Emily and Daniel joined the fight, firing at the creatures as they lunged toward Ryan. Each shot seemed to slow them down, but not stop them entirely. Time felt like it was slipping away. Ryan's hands moved quickly, connecting wires and rerouting energy. Sweat dripped from his forehead as he worked. Finally, he shouted, "It's ready. Get clear." Everyone turned and ran, diving behind cover as the monolith began to hum louder and brighter. The creatures screeched in fury, charging toward the device, as if sensing its impending destruction. Then, with a deafening roar, the monolith exploded in a blinding burst of light. When the dust settled, the chamber was eerily quiet. The creatures were gone, reduced to ash. But so was Ryan. He had stayed behind to ensure the overload worked, sacrificing himself to save the others. Daniel sank to his knees, grief washing over him. Laura cried silently, clutching her scanner to her chest. Even Admiral Hayes looked shaken, her usual composure cracked. They had won, but at a terrible cost. And deep down, they knew the galaxy would never forget what had happened here, or the man who gave everything to protect it. The aftermath of the explosion left the chamber in ruins. The once glowing monolith was now a pile of charred debris, its power drained, and its threat neutralized. Smoke lingered in the air, and the eerie silence that followed felt almost heavier than the chaos before. Admiral Hayes stood near the center of the room, her face unreadable as she surveyed the destruction. Her soldiers checked for any remaining signs of danger, but it was clear the creatures were gone, and the weapon was no more. Daniel sat on the ground, his hands resting on his knees, staring at the spot where Ryan had stood moments before. His mind replayed the scene over and over. Ryan's determined expression, his final shout, the blinding flash of light. Laura knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face as she tried to comfort him. Emily stood nearby, her arms wrapped around herself, unable to find the words to express what they were all feeling. Admiral Hayes approached the group after ensuring the area was secure. She crouched down next to Daniel, her voice softer than usual. "Your friend, he saved us all," she said quietly. "His actions will not be forgotten." Daniel nodded slowly, though the weight of Ryan's sacrifice still pressed heavily on him. "He didn't have to do that," he murmured. "But he did, because he knew it was the only way." Hayes placed a hand on his shoulder briefly before standing up. "We'll make sure he's remembered, not just by us, but by everyone." With the immediate danger dealt with, the team began their journey back to the surface. The trek through the tunnels was somber, each step a reminder of how much they had lost. When they finally emerged into the open air, the sight of the Aurora Vanguard hovering above brought little relief. The crew of the Starlight Horizon boarded the shuttle in silence, their hearts heavy with grief. Back aboard the flagship, Admiral Hayes held a brief ceremony to honor Ryan's bravery. She announced that his name would be added to the War Armada's memorial wall, a rare honor for someone outside their ranks. A plaque bearing his name would also be placed aboard the Aurora Vanguard serving as a reminder of the sacrifices made to protect the galaxy. As the fleet prepared to leave the planet, Daniel gathered his crew in the shuttle bay. They shared stories about Ryan, his dry humor, his love for tinkering with machines, and his unwavering loyalty. Though it hurt to talk about him, it helped ease the pain, even if just a little. When the Starlight Horizon returned to Earth, the crew found themselves changed. Laura spent hours reviewing the data they had collected, determined to learn everything she could about the Varith and their world. Emily threw herself into her research, hoping to understand why such advanced civilizations often fell victim to their own creations. And Daniel carried the memory of Ryan with him every day, vowing to lead future missions with the same courage and selflessness his friend had shown. Word of their mission spread quickly, earning humanity recognition among the galactic community. For the first time, Earth was seen not just as a small, distant planet, but as a valuable ally capable of facing even the greatest threats. The incident marked a turning point for humanity, opening doors to new alliances and opportunities. As the Starlight Horizon prepared for its next voyage, Laura gazed out the window at the endless stars. She thought about Ryan and wondered if, somewhere out there, he was watching over them. "We'll keep going," she whispered to herself. "For you." And so, despite the loss and heartache, the crew moved forward, ready to face whatever adventures awaited them in the vastness of space.